Today I'm joined by Andrei Zinkevich from fullfunnel.io, the ABM expert who says 98.5% of marketers are dissatisfied with their programs. We dive into why lead generation isn't actually marketing, the AI automation BS flooding LinkedIn at the moment, and where their paid media really fits in account-based strategies. Plus, Andrei shares his 8-pillar ABM framework and a 30-day tactic to accelerate enterprise pipeline. This episode is brought to you by Humble Roots, a B2B paid media agency helping companies with 3 million plus ARR stop wasting budget on broad targeting by mapping actual buying committees and reaching the influencers who really move deals forward, not just the decision makers everyone else is chasing. So let's get into it. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please subscribe and like. Right, thank you everyone for joining us today, and I have got the pleasure of having the man, the myth, the legend. Anyone that knows about ABM will surely know who this man is. I've got today with me Andrei Zinkevich. So Andrei, if you could please do the honor of introducing yourself and letting everyone know who you are, exactly how long you've been doing this for. I'm sure people will be looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm co-founder of a company called fullfunnel.io. We are ABM and B2B demand gen consultant company working with B2B tech companies with high ACV products and long sales cycles. I've been personally in the trenches for the last almost 20 years, starting in enterprise sales and then switching to enterprise marketing. And then for the last almost 6 years, we are running our own consulting company. So in a nutshell, everything what we do is helping GTM teams, marketing, sales, client success to work together and drive enterprise pipeline and revenue with holistic account-based marketing and demand gen programs.
Thank you very much for the intro, Andrei. And if we were to start on something we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago, which is football. So, of course, when I was taking a look, I come across the fact that you wanted to be a professional footballer, like most of us. I grew up wanted to be a footballer. You played in Ukraine. So it'd be good to understand, basically, with that drive and ambition, wanting to be a professional footballer, which is extremely difficult. We all know just how hard it is to make it to just like the top level. I mean, I'm not even talking Premier League. Even conference, even championship is extremely, extremely difficult. So what would you say are, basically, what's your biggest lessons that you've got from sports that shapes how you approach business today?
So when it comes to business, let's say lessons, I would say patience is the first thing, especially if you operate in an enterprise environment and you have long sales cycles. You need to understand that you need to have solid process in place. You need to trust the process and you need to know that this process will yield the results, right? As a consequence of this endurance, you need to play the long game, right? You can't just focus on short wins. They are not sustainable. You need to focus on the long game. Next is camaraderie, in a sense that you need to build real relationship with your team. You can't just, comment or plan only your own interests, etc. You need to always focus on the team's goal and think about your partners and how they could let's say, gain the benefits. So it's just not your personal career, your own goals and targets, ignoring or sacrificing the relationship with the team. And ultimately, it's about the team sport, right? In football, like you mentioned, you can't win only if you have a super talent. Think about, let's say, a period of time when Paris Saint-Germain had Mbappe, Messi, Neymar in the team. Did they win Champions League? No. Obviously, they were they were winning French championship, but they couldn't compete with the top European clubs. Or look, for example, at Portugal with Cristiano Ronaldo. It's not always the case that he can win World Cup, etc. with the team. So on contrary, you need to have a great team. If you look at Spanish national team, the latest European championship, nobody they were not the top favorites of the tournament, but why did they win? Because of the team and the great coach. Because in football, it's important that it's not it's just not my job, right? It's our team. Everybody attacks, everybody defends. That's the mentality of the winning team. The same is in business. It's not that marketing is supposed to generate awareness and sales is supposed to close the deals and client success is supposed to deliver value to the customers. No, it means that everybody creates awareness, everybody sells, everybody makes sure that your customer gets let's say shortened time to value. These are kind of the main lessons in a nutshell.
No, it makes a lot of sense because even for myself personally, I've started coaching my son's football team. I didn't plan to do it because it's coaching 5-6-year-olds, which is extremely difficult. But one of the reasons why I wanted to get my son into football is because you just learn so many different skills that you take with you everywhere. And one of the ones which I think is so important, just learning how to win and lose, because you can't win every game in football. You're going to win some, but then you're going to lose some games as well. And actually, you know what? The games that you lose, you probably learn so much more from those games. And that's when it's hard, because you've been there when you're in the changing room, when you go 4, 5, 6, 7 different games and you're losing, it's awful. Players don't want to turn up. The morale's dead. Everyone's just not feeling it. All it takes is just one win and everything changes. Everyone's back up again. So that's some of the stuff that I absolutely love about football and playing football. It's balance. It's balance. You can't win if you're losing, and you just have to be able to take both of them. And one of the things is, of course, I was taking a look and seeing that you spent a good 8 years in enterprise sales, which must have gave you a lot of fundamentals. Now that you've transitioned over to, say, the ABM side, where you're essentially, the way I see it, you're the bridge between sales and marketing, because ABM can't function without marketing, ABM can't function without sales. So it's essentially that glue. What are you basically telling marketers that, now that you're telling basically marketers that lead generation isn't marketing, what would your sales background self think about that?
So I think the biggest problem with lead generation is the lack of understanding what actually creates lead, right? And quite often the second problem, as a consequence of this, is there is a lack of definition what lead is. Because we can make a quick excursion into history and see where it all happened and how it created a B2B marketing suicide spiral. So it all started almost 20 years ago when the demand waterfall was presented. And what was the reason? Marketing, especially in corporates and enterprise organizations. So if you think 20 years back, obviously we didn't have so many technology companies, right? So the MarTech sales and generally the tech landscape was much smaller. So from that perspective, in most corporates, and I used to work for corporations, marketing quite often was perceived as arts and crafts department. So they do something like brand, presentations, events, So nobody treated it as revenue function. And especially in B2B, marketing was considered as a cost center. So demand waterfall framework came as a solution. Now we have predictable marketing. Now we can prove our value. And as a part of this, we kind of invented a linear buyer journey and linear funnel, saying, okay, this is MQL. And if you'll open any modern CRM, you'll immediately see these life cycle stages, right? MQL, SQL, etc. And we assume that the journey is linear. It's just enough to generate MQLs. Then there is some conversion, right? The funnel, and then we can make marketing predictable. And then I remember how John Miller, ex-founder of Marketo and Demandbase, described this at our Full Funnel Summit. He said, like 20 years ago, I used to come to my CFO, I was CMO, and said, if you want to double number of leads, just double my budget. As simple as that. So we just trained our CFOs and leadership on this kind of gumball machine mentality. Put a quarter in, get MQL out, right? That's the biggest problem. And that became a standard B2B marketing playbook that most of the companies just simply inherited. Nobody even questioned this, right? Nobody questioned that it never worked. And I will tell you why it never worked. Because the truth is we can't control the buyer journey. It's an illusion. No vendor can really control the buyer journey and the buyer decisions. Can you influence it? For sure, but you don't control it, right? And you don't control the life cycle stages. And the second truth, like when we try to create linear journey or linear funnels, right? It's absolutely not true. If you look at enterprise buyer journey, the decisions, like buyers can take multiple steps. Like if you look, let's say, from your funnel perspective, right? They could come back to the top of the funnel or to the jump immediately into the bottom of the funnel, and this is like a constant ongoing journey. So that's this is the fundamental issue. So it's not the problem that lead generation doesn't work. The problem is that the linear process where we assume that there is shortcut to sales and marketing, it's just enough to capture the demand, whatever. Find a great copywriter who will prepare the best possible scripts for your demand, or basically for your paid media, for your demand capture ads, or create the personal script, like perfect script for cold emails that will convert like crazy. This is the fundamentally broken playbook, right? Which is assumed as lead generation. And next, the second fundamental problem with this demand waterfall is the definitions of MQLs, SQLs. It's not true. So until there is no declared intent of talking to you, any company or any buyer can't be labeled as MQL or SQL or prospect or whoever. For yourself, you can call this a prospect just because you are prospecting that company. But this is not lead in any essence until there is a declared interest of talking to you. So this is what I'm saying. And it doesn't matter if you are looking at it from marketing or from sales perspective. So this is what we need to understand, that there is the buying process. We need to understand how that buying process looks like. Not only because we use, especially I will talk as a salesperson, we used to measure sales cycle from the first contact, from the first conversation till the deal is signed. But it doesn't represent the length of the buyer journey, right? The real sales cycle and the real length of the buyer journey is when you had the first interaction, the first touch point, when the buyer first has seen your piece of content, whatever, met you at conference, somebody recommended you, somebody shared whatever, your product, or mentioned your product in the community, right? So we need to measure the buyer journey from how, and understand the buying process from how our buyers become aware of different vendors. That's the key. I remember I was reading earlier this year the report that was produced by Pavilion and Trust Radios, and they said that 86% of enterprise B2B buyers now, or today, basically shortlist their vendors way before they have a business need and start official, let's say, buying process. That's the key. And today in AI era where everybody could create content, ads, personalized emails at scale, it's not your leverage, it's not your advantage anymore. Today, it's all about how can you become a trusted vendor that is shortlisted way before the business need occurs.
No, I completely agree, because you can almost see over the last 5 to 6 years, etc., how it almost felt like we went so hardcore with just performance marketing, lead generation activity, and then all of a sudden now everyone's acting like, oh, let's talk about brand again, as if brand ever went away. But no, brand's always been there, and brand and performance go together. You shouldn't be doing one without the other. Both should be done at the same time. And it's almost the thing that we see all the time with B2C. B2C have been doing this for donkeys of years. They're always doing brand and performance at the same time. And some of them just purely focus on brand. The likes of Coca-Cola, everyone knows Coca-Cola just purely based on their brand. And by the time that someone goes to the shop, they don't even have to think. They just grab that Coca-Cola. So then from the B2B side of it, we need to be thinking the exact same way that, right, if at any given moment in time, only 5% of people are actually in market and the other 95% are not, we don't know whereabouts in the stage they are, those 95%. What can we do from a brand side of it to make sure that we make that shortlist so that when the time comes, when they are ready to make that purchase or at least have the conversations, we come top of mind, because that's completely changed as well in the past 18 months with AI now. They don't even need to go on the website to talk to anyone. I can go on Gemini, I can go on Claude, make my shortlist there. I don't need to talk to a salesperson. So I think it's extremely interesting what's going on at the moment, but I like it. I just need to figure out how to crack it and ruin it like every marketer does.
That's true.
And then for yourself, Andrei, when did you last feel completely out of your depth in marketing? Because everything changes, it moves so fast. Yeah, good to know.
So I will share maybe two examples. One was maybe 2 years ago, and it completely blew my mind. There was a company we worked with maybe for 1 year, and we built really solid ABM program, driven enterprise pipeline. And for whatever reason, they brought a new CRO. And that person came with old school sales background, like, okay, everything should be measured by leads. You know the story, right? So the guy started questioning everything: the thought leadership, webinars, customer events, like one-on-one account plans, etc., fully personalized content for specific accounts. And then I remember there was a meeting with, and he was kind of candidate from CEO. They had, I later realized this, they had some personal relationship. They both were living in Boston, you know, having barbecue, fun, etc. And the guy sold the dream. Okay, so we just need to make everything more predictable, etc. And this is the software development company, which is a super tough niche. There is a huge competition because you sell high ticket commodity service. That's the biggest problem, right? So I remember we had the guy came where we were discussing a specific webinar strategy for like there were like maybe 20 accounts, 20 enterprise accounts that we wanted to nurture with that specific webinar. And then the minute he came and he said like why even hosting this webinar if a CTO from these accounts are willing to come and listen to our subject matter expert, and their CTO was supposed to be as a speaker, and he was very excited. We designed the topic together. We kind of defined the jobs to be done and what we need to address. And he said, if CTOs of these target accounts are willing to come and listen to our CTO, then it means that there is no need to host it. It's better to pitch them our services and they would talk to me. I'm like, really? So and then he was like, why creating this personalized content? Why you spend so much time? Just ask ChatGPT. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then so there were like a couple of conversations like this, and then we just terminated contract on our own. And the team went super frustrated. And in a period of 6 to 8 months, everybody who was in ABM team, they just left the organization. So that was kind of the era of right? Basically, ChatGPT was rising as go-to-market tool, right? Where people were substituting their brains with everything that AI brings you. And the second story, which is really, from my perspective, is hilarious, is that today, if you'll open LinkedIn, for example, you see crazy posts where young guys, share crazy N8N workflows or crazy AI automation workflows, these huge diagrams, and then presented, I have automated my entire sales process. I have automated my entire marketing process. I have generated whatever, millions in pipeline. And people, they make these claims, so they say, I have just, fired my entire marketing team and created marketing department with AI agents. And then, if you'd like to get my secret sauce, leave a comment, and people are commenting like crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so people don't even question, is it true? So we saw a post and we know this company, they're located in Spain, and I used to think about them in a positive way because they used to produce good content. But ultimately, Vlad, my co-founder, shared another day a post with me, and the guys, they published a video on LinkedIn with AI avatar talking about some stuff about cold outreach, and they said, okay, meet our AI influencer. That AI avatar generated millions in pipeline for us, producing hundreds of expert videos on cold outreach. So Vlad made the research. He looked at their company's page on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, checked profiles of the executives who are posting the content. He opened their YouTube channel, and guess what? There were no videos from this AI avatar, but people were commenting like crazy. Send. This guy, and Vlad asked the question, like, okay, so if this AI avatar is influencing, millions of pipeline and creating these videos, why these videos are not publicly available? Do you think anybody reply to this comment? No, but this is insane, because this creates a real problem for the B2B organizations. Obviously, as you guess, executives see this, VC funds see this, and they require all marketers to be AI fluent today, right? And I spoke about today with Peer. I remember how Shopify CEO made this kind of this claim in a letter to employees of Shopify, that before you request a budget or a resource, you need to prove that you can do it with AI. So that became kind of a new golden standard, but nobody talks about the real problems here. First of all, short time pipeline targets and pressure is still there. The plates are full because the teams were cut, right, in terms of resources and headcounts 2 years ago. So it's not that marketers, they have an empty plate and they have something to bring, right? They are pressured to do a lot of things, and obviously everybody pressures them to do more with AI, but nobody speaks about the dark side of the problem, right? That the processes are not there. The problems with the scattered systems and data sitting in multiple places, right? The problems with data governance, legal stuff, procurement, even acquiring AI kind of tool, right? The procurement could be hectic in a nutshell. Dealing with the legal, with IT, etc., security teams. There are so many things, and then the compliance. And then the next problem is that you need, before AI will help you with anything, because for me, AI is automation in a nutshell, right? So before AI will help with anything, you need to have good processes, exactly like you were onboarding a new team member, right? That's the first thing. And the second one is that you need to have a definition of good. You want to do account research with AI, fine, but you need to onboard it. Okay, this is the step-by-step process we use. This is where you need to find or look for the information, and this is the output. This is how the good account research looks like. what we expect from you, and then that you need to highlight the points that you couldn't find. But you need to invest time to develop this, right? And there is no time for this. So there is kind of, we ignore the elephant in the room, that we don't have the processes and fundamentals, but now we're saying that AI could do more for us. And then, of course, how marketers are using this. They ask ChatGPT, okay, so you guys asked us to create whatever, 10 articles. Okay, we'll just put it in ChatGPT and then put that crap on our blog. That's the problem. So we don't speak about the dark side, and this is what I hate, but I try to call out all the time, that AI is a game changer from many perspectives, but to make it work, you need to have solid foundations, which require time and investment, right? This is like a project for marketing team, for the sales team. Doesn't matter, for any team that is supposed to use it. And if you don't have this in place, it will fail, and it will fail fast.
I mean, I jump on LinkedIn every day and I see the posts and I just look at them and think to myself, wow, I feel like a dinosaur, because some of the stuff that I see on LinkedIn is we've got this stack with this stack, this tool with this tool, and we've generated X amounts of revenue. And I'm like, how? Like, fundamentally, it just doesn't even make a lot of sense to me. And I'm feeling like, I feel like I'm still using Windows 95 compared to some of the stuff that I see on LinkedIn. But you're completely right in the sense that I think a lot of people assume you just go into ChatGPT, you go into Claude, you put your prompt in, and then you just take exactly what comes out of it. And that's the truth. Whereas actually, going back to like 2 years ago, when AI was first coming about to the mainstream, I feel like the people who were early on at that point understood that actually, you know what, you have to train your models, you have to fine tune them, you have to give them the data so that they know what good is, what great is. And then at that point, then you can start trusting it. Whereas I feel like now we just trust whatever comes out of the shelf and then people just go with it. But jumping on to ABM performance, I know, Andrei, that you've said around about 99% of marketers are dissatisfied with their ABM performance. What's the biggest bullshit that ABM vendors are selling right now?
I think we need to first of all share where the data comes from, because I mentioned the critical thinking, right? So I just don't want to be, one of these people who say 99% no. So where it's coming from? We hosted a webinar last year about planning the pilot ABM program. So we had approximately 450 people with us online, and we ran a poll, right? Are you satisfied with your ABM program? And it was like, yes, I'm fully satisfied. And it was so, I believe we can do much better. And then I'm completely frustrated. So I'm completely frustrated was like around 60%, and then 38.5% said that it's so, I will believe that it could be done much better. So this is why I'm saying that 98%, 98.5% are not satisfied with ABM, right? Now, the problem is, again, like I mentioned with AI, the same story could be applied to ABM. So ABM kind of is perceived as a new shortcut to drive enterprise pipeline. There is no strategy in place, there is no playbook in place, and to make ABM work, like you said, it's a glue, it's a bridge between marketing and sales, and often it's a bridge between top of the funnel and the sales process, right? So it helps you to connect the dots. But to make it work, you need to have cross-functional team, marketing, sales, subject matter expert, client success. And when I mention sales, it means that account executives and SDR, or at least you need to have committed SDR here. And for marketing, you need to have ABM lead, you need to have content resource. These are two kind of must-have resources. And then optionally design, paid media, that could be somebody from the demand gen team. And then you need to have your subject matter expert, right? So that's the key. And these people, they need to have some real time to build this program. But in a nutshell, you know how that looks like. So marketing is blamed that they are not helping to close the deals or to generate pipeline. So marketing comes to sales and says, okay, we want to do ABM with you guys. It will help us, this will enable us to help you with enterprise pipeline generation. Okay, so sales replies, okay, what do you need from us? Well, let's do some planning. What accounts do we want to target? Like what can we do in terms of playbooks? So what happens next? Obviously, because it's called account-based marketing, it creates a false and very problematic thinking that it's fully owned marketing initiative, right? Which means that you guys in marketing are supposed to warm up, engage these accounts without any active sales participation. And when account is interested, when they want to talk to us, now we'll pick up that account and then we'll do our job. Which means, again, that the silos is there. Marketing is supposed to do all the job, and then sales, they just pick up the cherry from the cake and they close the deal. But I'm sorry to say that it doesn't work that way. If that was that easy, and if marketing could on their own generate enterprise pipeline, won't we see the difference that marketing departments would be much bigger than sales departments, right? But it's opposite. So marketing, it's not that marketing do this and sales do that. Obviously, there are split responsibilities, but coming back to football, right? Everybody attacks, everybody defends. That's the key. But obviously, you have the responsibilities. If you are playing like lateral or like a winger, you have your own responsibilities, but still you help your partners. The same is here. So you can't make it work in silos. But coming back to what you said about ABM vendors, most of the content about ABM was created by them. And they created this false assumption because if you remember, I mentioned this B2B marketing suicide spiral coming from the demand waterfall playbook. So then we had marketing automation, then we had growth hacking, and coming back to ABM. So everybody, like smart people, they spot the trends and okay, marketing needs to report on something. So what marketing needs now to report on? The engaged accounts. And so how can you report on the engaged accounts? You buy our platform, you upload the list from sales, that basically this wish list that sales share it with you, and when somebody clicks the display ads, the email or whatever from this platform, you kind of present it as marketing engaged this account. So we actually influenced it, and now it's not our problem. It's that sales, they don't know how to close the engaged accounts. So in a nutshell, they kind of gave a new pill to marketing. Now you can again be pipeline or revenue responsible. You can show your own impact, not honestly talking about the real case studies. If you'll go through their platforms, you'll rarely see, sometimes you can see the claims, whatever, doubled the pipeline, whatever, but do you see actually the real numbers? No. And that's the biggest problem, right? So, or whatever, marketing influenced the 100% pipeline, whatever. So there are so many claims, but you rarely see really structured, detailed case studies that reveal the playbooks. So that's the biggest problem. And because of this, ABM kind of created this content, created a new shortcut that it's enough to buy the platform. You'll run technically, you can still call it that. Together with sales, we did account planning because they threw us the wish list of the accounts, and now we're running some ads. Quite often, they send you hundreds or thousands of accounts, right? And then the question is, what can you do with hundreds of accounts, right? Like, obviously, and you have other responsibilities and other tasks and other goals. So what else can you do? You can just run this programmatic display ads or send some, outbound emails, and that's literally it. So this is the biggest kind of miss that was unfortunately facilitated. And nobody, obviously, if the platform, they can't claim that really to make sure that our platform will work for you, you need to have all the fundamental processes in place, right? And you rarely see Obviously, they grew when ABM became trendy, but nobody talks about the churn rates that these companies are experiencing, unfortunately. So that's another problem. And today they pick up, most of them are picking up the new trend with AI, and they say, okay, now in our platform you have AI agents that will do this, and that for you. And again, we ignore the elephant in the room, that to make this work, I'm not saying that it's not valuable, it is. But it's like you'll give keys to Ferrari to, like 14 years old kid who just used to drive, cars when playing Need for Speed game, and assuming now that I can drive Ferrari on the streets of London. So that's the biggest problem that I'm observing.
You guys have built a lot of frameworks and a lot of strategic pillars. I know that you have your 8-pillar ABM strategy. From your 8-pillar ABM strategy, which pillar would you say most companies completely skip that kills their entire program?
I would tell you which one, maybe it's better to say which one they never skip. And they never skip pillar number 4, the technology stack. This is the first thing that they care about. So, well, I mean, technically, if you'll audit or you'll talk to companies that say, okay, we are doing ABM, technically, they will tell you that we are following all 8 pillars, and let's call them out, right? So the first one is goals, the second one is the team, the third one is ICP criteria for selecting accounts for your ABM program. Number 4 is the technology stack that will enable to run your basically pillar number 5, account list building, how you're going to select the accounts, per personalization, what are you going, how deeply you are going to dive into personalization, warm up and activation, how you're going to warm up the buying committee and then engage them to create sales opportunities. And the last one is the reporting and metrics. How will you measure your ABM performance? In reality, most of them would say, okay, we do all of this. We have all these 8 pillars in place. And technically they are right. But the problem is that most people, they simply have never done ABM in the right way, so they don't know how the good looks like. That's the problem. Again, saying we want to target the biggest North American banks is fine. And technically that could be counted as we did the account selection according to our ICP, because our ICP are the banks from North America, that size, that revenue, etc. Right? But when I'm asking a second question, when you look at this list, would you bet your compensation on it? And they're just, staring at me. What do you mean by this? I mean, very simple. Like, do you think that, like, if you are going to bet your compensation on these accounts, do you think they really you will be able to convert them? And they, oh, well, if you look from that angle, I'm not sure, but these are our target accounts, and I'm okay, fine. But do you know, are these accounts in the market? Do these accounts know your company? Do you have any relationship with the buying committee members? Do you have any product need evidence signals, basically anything that tells you that these accounts could be in the market right now, or they have the challenge your product solves? No. But then if the answer is no, why do you select these accounts? Or it's still okay to select these accounts, but you need to drastically change the goal of your playbook. Then the goal of your playbook shouldn't be, okay, we expect the leads or like sales opportunities from these accounts. The first thing that you need to do is create an awareness there, because if you won't create awareness there, you won't be able to sell to them. And unfortunately, as we spoke, it's not enough to create awareness via personalized ads or just programmatic display ads or personalized emails. That's the problem.
I know one thing that you really double down on and champion is relationship first. You're pretty much a relationship first type of person, but at some point, you basically need to reach multiple stakeholders across target accounts at a scale. Where does paid media fit in your ABM approach? And is account-based advertising just lead generation in disguise? or can it actually amplify those relationships? What's your take and thoughts on that?
So paid media, email, LinkedIn messages or Reddit messages or whatever, these are all the distribution and communication channels. So if the key point is thinking about what would be the best channels or mediums to warm up and engage my target audience, right? If you know that your target audience, for example, is sitting on LinkedIn, and these people are not aware of you, what is the benefit of the paid media first, right? You can for sure distribute specific pieces of content that you want to use to nurture your target buyers, right? That's the key, if you have the budget for this. What is the kind of obsolete way, or the way that I see is not working, is when you kind of get this cold list and you start running ads, book a demo, talk to our expert, etc. There is a kind of ads blindness for this. So the point is that you need to have a good playbook, right? I mentioned in the beginning, you really need to understand the buyer journey. You need to have a good playbook in place. And paid media, because we shouldn't mention the channels here. The channels are purely dependent on your ICP, right? For some companies, that could be Facebook. For some companies, that could be Reddit, Quora, whatever, right? So paid media helps you to maximize the chances that your target buyers will see your piece of content or your messaging. So as simple as that. But paid media doesn't guarantee you that you will generate sales opportunities, and paid media can't be used as just a sole tactic to generate pipeline, which again, I think most companies are missing. You mentioned this in the beginning, but nothing should be in silos. If you look at your go-to-market strategy, everything should be intertwined and connected. As I'm saying, paid media is just a distribution channel. And the question is, what are you going to distribute via it?
No, I completely agree. I mean, I see it every single day as a paid media agency. And one of the things that I always say and think is, great, all fun and games. Yes, we can pick any channel, but actually use your ICP there. Okay. And then how do we communicate with them? How do we talk with them? What content have you got that resonates with them? Because if you don't have great content that's going to land with your ICP to be able to distribute it, to hit the mark, it's pointless. You're just wasting budget and you're wasting money. But then off the back of that, you're then expecting results. And by results, you're expecting pipeline off the back of it. But the one thing, going back to what you said around the vendors, is they will take the money. LinkedIn won't tell you to stop running the ads. They will carry on spending your money and just eat up all of your budget. And then just, it'd be good to understand, Andrei, from your side of it, what are you currently testing? What are you actively testing at Full Funnel right now that you are excited about?
Basically, two things. One is I'm always curious how to accelerate time to value with ABM programs. So every time I spend, I mean, not only myself, but with our team, we spend decent time on retrospective of the pilot programs that we have finished and thinking about how could we make it better, right? Now with the hindsight, what we could do better, and that leads to kind of meaningful improvements. We try to identify the patterns, and then so every time with every single client, right? Also, every single client helps us to polish the playbook to make it more actionable, better, and making sure that the results. Even the initial leading indicators like account engagement, right? These results are coming faster. So that's the first thing. And from that perspective, we revisit and review all areas of ABM program. And the second thing, so basically every quarter we test new ideas, new approaches, right? But again, this is not a revolution in terms how we're doing it. It's just an evolution of what's already proven and what already works. So that's one thing. And the second one, again, I mentioned AI a couple of times. So we review again where AI can be really deployed and bring value, right? So from that perspective, are there any specific tasks that's where AI could be a huge leverage point, and how to leverage it properly, right? Again, simple example, account research, like we have discussed. Ask many people and they say, oh yeah, for sure, we do account research. But then how do they do it? They send, for example, they put the list of accounts into Clay or into ChatGPT, hey, do an account research. And then you ask, okay, how are you using this information? Oh, we use it to personalize our emails. But they don't really use it to qualify the accounts, right? That's the first thing. They don't really use it to understand where these accounts are in the buyer journey. And I will make a smart bet saying that less than 1% of all companies that have ever done ABM rarely use the account research in the account-based content strategy. And this is the huge lever. So the first thing where you need to use it is, okay, you gathered all this information. Think about from the account perspective, right? What pieces of content, what topics, what messaging, I'm not talking about the emails, hey, let's book a call because I have seen that, this and that, right? No, but what might be interesting for these people to consume that could attract their attention, that could see the grain. Okay, that makes perfect sense where I could learn more, right? Today, you compete for the attention first. I remember, and just to give you an idea, I remember a fantastic post I saw from a guy who is running sales assembly, if I'm correct. And he said, so they were arranging a conference and they invited VP of IT from Snowflake. And so the room was full of salespeople. And then after the presentation, one sales rep raised hand and said, I have a question. So everything that you shared with us makes sense, but how can we attract your attention as sales reps? And he said, it's not possible. And everybody was laughing. And then when the room calmed down, he said, look, the problem is that I'm receiving hundreds of messages every single week, even if they are super personalized, even if they are just touching on my most challenging, parts of my jobs to be done. I just simply don't have time to read them. So if I don't know you, they will be bulk deleted. So from that perspective, I either should know you, we should have some relationship, or you should attract attention of my team. My team should come with the problem and the solution saying, hey, so these guys, this is our challenge, and these guys seem to be kind of a good solution to the challenge that we have, and this is how it's supposed to work, right? Which means that you need to create champions, people who don't have the decision-making power, who will give you additional insights, with whom you will create the business cases to sell to the decision makers, right? That's the key. So from that perspective, why I mentioned this, from this perspective, you need to understand the incentives and how to engage multiple buying committee members, right? Not just using it, okay, AI, please run account research and create personalized emails based on this. So this is what these are the areas where we investigate how to use it properly, with one important nuance. We define what processes should be in place, what internal quality benchmarks, like how can we say that this is a good delivery, right? An example of how good looks like. What should be in place before AI should be used, and how to train AI properly. So these are the keys, basically, to main kind of use cases that we're working on.
I think you hit one thing on the nail on the head. I put a post about it last month talking about how I think it was along the lines of a lot of fintech companies are spending too much time just targeting C-suite only. And with targeting C-suite, those guys are getting hit, not just for fintech only, but for
every tool, every solution under the radar. And actually, you're better off just taking a step back and looking at, right, who's the actual champions, who's the influencers, and trying to build relationships and target those people, because they actually have the time, they've got the problem, and then they take that problem and that solution further up. But everyone's just obsessed with C-suites, and I'm like, give those guys a break. Like, you know how much they get hammered by everything. And then for someone who's struggling with long enterprise sales cycles, what's one specific tactic they could test in the next 30 days to accelerate pipeline velocity?
I will give you the lowest hanging fruit, probably the best one. Again, if you are a marketer, right, just find your ally on the sales side. So a person who is willing to collaborate with marketing. I'm not saying that it should be, the top performer or the most experienced person, but just the person that is friendly towards marketing and who is willing to do some sort of collaboration, right? And then just define together, sit down together, and pick up, just simply ask, are there any engaged accounts? Or maybe you can come up with the engaged accounts, whatever. You can look at your marketing analytics, even if it's scattered, you can still look at maybe people who attended your recent webinar, or even MQLs. If you are playing that game, that's absolutely fine. You can find saying, hey, so it seems that we have, some of the engaged accounts from your area. Would it be up if we'll just sit down together, collect all the insights about these accounts, and then brainstorm what can we do together to create sales opportunities with these accounts? And obviously, from that perspective, if you'll start thinking backwards from that goal, right? What should you do? And then you can create a simple set of actions that could be, okay, define the entire buying committee, analyze their profiles, run account research, understand where they are in the buyer journey, think about our upcoming marketing and sales plans. Are there any events that might be relevant for these people? Maybe I will start, engaging with them. Maybe the easiest tactic would be, if these people posting something, I could start commenting on their posts, whatever, right? Yeah, I don't want to come up with the ultimate playbook. The key point is that you sit down together, but it would be much better. I just gave an idea if you can look at marketing analytics, but it would be much better if sales already have some engaged accounts, and you just simply sit down and say, hey, so from marketing perspective, what kind of the top things we can help you to engage these accounts, right? And maybe they would say, oh, for this account, it would be perfect if you can create this piece of content, and I would send it to this person, and maybe I will try to reach out to this decision maker, saying that there was a conversation about this, and this document might be relevant for them, whatever. Just giving an idea. Oh, it would be fantastic, guys, so for now you are just talking about, let's say, economical buyers, but what if you arrange a webinar for the technical buyers, because they could be often blockers, and you ask a follow-up question, and so what's the most common blocking point? And they say, okay, the migration, for example, there is always a concern about this, or security, I don't know, right? So then you just find an internal subject matter expert saying, hey, I was listening. Obviously, it would be beneficial for you to listen to some of the sales calls with the technical people. But even if you don't have these insights, okay, you can say, I spoke to this sales rep, and he mentioned that this quite often leads to, closed loss deals. So there we have an idea to try. So what would you be up to run a technical webinar to address the security issues, for these technical buyers, and we'll kind of make our best to invite as many people from these strategic accounts as possible. And from this perspective, you don't really need to think about numbers for success, that I need to have hundreds or thousands of webinar signups, because quite often people come to LinkedIn and say, this crazy stats. Even I mentioned in the beginning, we had 450 people with us online, but we have big audience, right? For many people, if 12 target CTOs will come, it's a huge success. You need to treat it as micro event that helps you to generate real business, because out of this, this webinar presentation could be, and again, mentioning AI, it could be easily repurposed into meaningful pieces of content, short pieces of content, frameworks, long pieces of content. You can update your website, you can update sales decks, right? You can create real buyer enablement program. And even when sales, if they foresee beforehand that problem, they could already armor their champions with this content. Okay, so if you guys would be talking to the IT team, I guess you might hear, questions about security. So this is kind of the security protocol we have created, so that might be valuable just in case if you'll hear this. And what you do in this case, you accelerate the sales cycle. You don't wait until your champion will have this conversation, hear that question, then come back to you. You just foresee the next potential pitfalls and you try to address them beforehand. So this is the easiest tactic. Sit down, pick up few engaged accounts, create meaningful action plans, and just do them.
No, thank you very much for that, Andrei. As we look to wrap up, I just have one last final question, which is, who's another B2B marketing expert our audience should be following that maybe they haven't discovered, or someone who'd be worthwhile having on the podcast?
I would definitely recommend you to invite John Miller, who I have already mentioned, ex-founder of Market and Demand Base. I know he is working on some new AI startup, but it's brilliant how he is calling out the real go-to-market challenges and also all the crazy hype with AI, meanwhile showing good AI best practices, how they could be leveraged. I think everybody would learn a lot from him, even by following him on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrei. I will slide into John's DMs and see if John will be willing to come on here. But
it's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Andrei. Really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Likewise. Thanks a lot for